administration officials interfered with the CDC and how that negatively impacted the government's response to the pandemic. Top health officials said that they felt muzzled by the White House. They discussed the decision in August of 2020 to change testing guidance. You may recall that the CDC at that point had revised testing guidance to say that people who had been exposed to COVID didn't need to get tested if they were asymptomatic. Quote, "You do not necessarily need a test unless you are a vulnerable individual or your healthcare provider or state or local public health officials recommend that you take one." Now, Dr. Deborah Birx told the committee it has been revealed that this document resulted in less testing and less aggressive testing of those without symptoms that she said, I believed, were the primary reason for the early community spread. Let's talk about this now with the former Assistant Secretary for Health at the Department of Health and Human Services, Admiral Brett Giroir. He was the testing czar during the Trump administration's handling of the pandemic. He is a pediatric critical care specialist. Sir, thank you for being with us to talk about this critical report. Did you alter testing guidance, or did you allow guidance to be altered?
Well, of course, we did our guidance as a group, and the testing guidance you're talking about underwent discussion for over 2 weeks. That included Dr. Birx. It did include Dr. Atlas, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Redfield, Dr. Walk. After 2 weeks of discussion, we decided that that was the appropriate guidance, and Dr. Fauci did sign off on it. Dr. Redfield published it in the CDC, and that was the guidance. It was highly misinterpreted by the public and the media. And to be honest, Dr. Birx thought it might be that way, and it was revised within 2 weeks. But everything was done in a scientific way. When you said, did I alter guidance? We worked together as a group of scientific and medical professionals to make the best guidance we did, and that's what was put out.
The guidance said to people who were asymptomatic that they didn't necessarily need to get tested, even at a time where you, certainly the testing czar, knew, and all of the officials at that table knew, that there was pronounced asymptomatic spread. How did that happen, and what did you do to try to stop that?
Let me talk about the intent here. What we saw happening is that a person who was exposed got a test on day 3, and then they went around their business without taking quarantine. The purpose here was to say that no matter whether you're tested or not, you have to be in quarantine to prevent asymptomatic spread. Now, I understand that was misinterpreted to say you don't need to be tested. That was not the intent. And the action was quite different. Remember, starting in July, I started surge testing sites. There were 643 in 23 states that was primarily meant to test the asymptomatic. So all our actions were to test the asymptomatic individuals. Testing went up. But that specific piece of the guidance, which, by the way, was signed off by Dr. Fauci, as well as presented by Redfield and Walk, that was CDC guidance. The intent was to make sure that if you were exposed, you would remain in quarantine. But yes, if your doctor or public health official said you needed to be tested, please be tested.
It was signed off by you.
Yes. It was signed off, the group of physicians, before we presented it back to the task force, came to a consensus about what that should be. And again, that included Dr. Fauci, myself, Dr. Redfield, Dr. Walk. Dr. Birx has input, and I want to say clearly, Dr. Birx did not like the language that was in there. She didn't stop it from being published. This was a CDC guidance because she thought it would be misinterpreted. And in retrospect, she was right. It was misinterpreted highly by the media, and it was changed within 2 weeks to the guidance that went forward.
I take issue with that. The media reported that this guidance was bad. We were talking to doctors, we were talking to scientists who immediately, when they saw that it was out there, that you all had put it out there, they said this guidance is anti-science. And we were very clear.
It's not.
I'm just going to say we were very clear. We were very
so,
the media.
So you talked to the doctors that you wanted to talk to was not anti-science. It was absolutely right.
Look,
that
sir,
if you're exposed, you need to be in quarantine, whether you're tested or not.
You admitted, sir, that the guidance was revised because it wasn't good. And the media, many outlets reported that it wasn't good from the jump. But Dr. Birx did testify that the Trump administration was against testing people who were not symptomatic. You know that because you had to correct.
True. That is not. That is not at all true.
The president was against testing because
he started in.
If I may,
no,
sir.
that is not at all true. That is 100% incorrect. That is 100% incorrect. We
finish my
absolutely
sentence,
supported asymptomatic
Admiral?
testing.
Admiral, the president was very clear about testing, that he didn't want testing because it revealed positive results. Of course, there were a lot of asymptomatic. He said it publicly.
He never said that to me. We always wanted to increase testing, and the oned time testing decreased is after the Biden administration took office, when it dropped 50%.
He said it out loud. It wasn't. I'm not talking about in private. He said that publicly.
We increased testing at every stage, starting from March. Testing went up dramatically. The only time testing went down is after the Biden administration was inaugurated, and it dropped by 50% because of lack of emphasis. No. We always increase testing by home-based testing, 150 million BINAC, 643 surge sites. Testing went up no matter what. The intent of the guidance was not to decrease testing. The intent of the guidance was to make sure that anyone who is recommended by a doctor of public health would get tested no matter what. But if you were exposed, we did not want you to take a test on day 3 and then go expose other people. You needed to stay in quarantine no matter what the test said. That was the intent. I understand it was misinterpreted, and we all decided to revise it. And
I just don't know.
The true history.
I don't know that that's fair. Dr. Birx testified that the Trump administration. This is Dr. Birx. She testified that the
Trump
administration.
She is the Trump administration. She is the Trump administration.
If I may finish, please. I
let
you finish. May I? Dr. Birx testified that the Trump administration was against testing people who were not symptomatic, despite what health officials were saying. And that resulted in less and less testing. Are you saying that she's lying?
We were.
Is she lying?
We were the Trump administration. She was the Trump administration. The Trump administration was not opposed to testing asymptomatic people. We did every action. Remember, 643 surge sites in 23 states, primarily to test asymptomatic individuals. That was my program. I know exactly about it. When she talked about the Trump administration, I'm not sure. Yes, Dr. Atlas did not want to test asymptomatic people. The Trump administration did, and that was our actions. Those are the facts. I was in the middle of it. I coordinated all the testing and all the recommendations.
All right, Admiral Jawad, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And here's what else to watch.